Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah! We got it! We got it!
52 booklet.
Somebody clip this one.
Welcome to Under Two Capes, episode 239. I am Jared. I am here with Teladia Plays as usual. What's up, Teladia Plays?
Not much, man. Not much. How you guys doing today?
Doing
Excellent,
very
excellent.
well. And today we are here with the DC New 52 review. Welcome to the show, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I go by Pauly DC on the channel, so it's a little
Right.
shorter. So you can just Pauly's good too, so we can do that for the rest of the show.
All right, there you go, Pauly. So I found you because what's funny is, so it's no secret that I'm a big New 52 fan. And for those of you that don't know, New 52 fans, we're like a secret brotherhood because if
The
you
secret society out here.
yeah, exactly. Because if you mention you're a New 52 fan on the internet, it's like a bleeding victim in a water full of sharks. That's what it turns into. So I'm like, oh my gosh, there's someone that's openly must get him on the channel. So what's up, brother? How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing good, and I'm so glad. This is my first ever stream podcast, and I'm very thankful for you guys to have me on here.
Anytime, dude. Anytime, dude. So
Anytime.
why don't you start off telling us what got you into comic books and stuff?
Yeah, it was at the sort of the beginning of COVID. I was already starting a New 52 collection. I started off with just actually the first Batman run with the Night of the Owl, or the Court of the Owls and the Night of the Owls saga.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, I remember just again, owls have just been a fascination to me forever. I've had one living in my backyard for 8 or 9 years now, and just watching them. So again, I was kind of gauging how to get back into comics. And again, I had heard about the New 52 for years before that. This was probably 2016. So again, this was right at the tail end of when the New 52 ended.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I kind of was hearing a lot about it and how they were doing the rebirth and everything was restarting again. So I started at the New 52 with the Court of the Owls book. I grabbed a couple Deathstrokes, Justice League Dark. Yeah. And then that was it. I just kind of it started very small. And then I slowly just, one issue, Teen Titans takes you into the Colleen and you got to go for Legion Lost. And then the Justice League Dark takes you into all the other stuff with the Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. So it just snowballed into me collecting pretty much the entire New 52 over the last 7 years.
Jeez, that's more than I have.
Yeah.
So with my experience with the New 52, I first got into comics around 2013 or so. And so it had relatively just started. Yep. And I wanted to get into it because I was taking a comic book drawing class. I still can't draw, by the way. But at one point, this was around the time that they announced that Superman and Wonder Woman were a couple, and as Teladia and I know, we're big fans of that. Yep. So I picked up Trinity War, and I was like, okay, this is actually really cool. Because here's the good part about the New 52 and why most people got into it. You didn't have to read anything previous. It's just, nope.
Yep.
Everything is
on the table.
Square one.
Yep.
And I was like, that's why... I get why some people don't like regular reboots, but that's why I think sometimes you need them because the continuity can be very intimidating for people.
Yep. And it's not like it's a new thing for New 50 or for the DC to do something like the New 52. You got Crisis on Infinite Earths, 52. They've been doing revamps forever. And that's why I'm so confused about the Wonder Woman and Superman thing. It's you people knew in a few years' time it would be erased or whatever, retconned, and then they'd be back together with Lois Lane. Why was it such an issue that they tried something new? You got the strongest male character in the universe and the strongest female character. What was so vexing to kind of understand about that?
Well, what it was is because, and Brett and I have talked about this on our show. These people are easily threatened because they detected that. Well, because here's the thing: outside of like with Superman, Lois is not anything of a character. Wonder Woman, on the other hand, she's one of those characters where she could date Superman but still have her own adventures, and they're threatened by that because they think that like if it was really popular, which it was, then that'll become a permanent thing, which it should be, because then DC would probably sell more.
Yeah.
But as well, they
And just as an Elseworld story, sorry, please, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they forget that Lois Lane is Lois Lane for a reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because she's a lame character. There's nothing exciting about her.
Yeah.
Well, and they did like her own solo series, which flopped badly. But anyway, Polly, what do you want to say?
Yeah, we were saying like with Lois Lane, like she's gone nowhere ever. Like you got a 90s TV show. That's the most things people talk about when it comes to like Lois Lane being in like a strong story, I guess. That's only because people like it for weird nostalgia reasons.
That's what it is. And I was talking about it on my gaming stream today. And I think part of the reason for this is because here's the secret that no one really that these Superman fans don't want you to know. A lot of them are really old and they don't want to admit that they're old. So they want to hold on to whatever they remember from their youth. And that is part of it. But it's just to your point, I'm like, it's a reboot, and DC regularly reboots and constantly is redoing stuff. Plus, all the really popular Elseworld stories have done that. Have you noticed that in any Elseworld story, he gets with Diana at some point?
Yeah, or they're not together at all. They throw in a whole new relationship. Like, it's insane. You've got the ones with his name is the one from Earth 3, and he's a black
Ultraman.
Superman. Yes,
Ultraman.
yeah, or not Earth 3, not Earth 3.
Earth 2, Calvin Ellis.
Yeah, Calvin Ellis, yes. And it's like, again, he didn't even have to have a story. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, like these Superman characters can just, you know what I'm saying? You have so much potential to go with, so many stories with them. Why stick with someone who he's been with for like, he's been courting this woman for like 80 years? Come on, like, give us something better.
And then Dave brings up that most people just thought the Superman and Lois relationship is too iconic and historical to alter in the mainline comics. Well, here's the interesting thing about that. When you look at statements by like Siegel and Schuster, they didn't want Superman to end up with Lois. That's why she's written very intolerantly in the original Action Comics run.
Yeah,
she is mean in the original Action Comics run. That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, that when they say, well, you just don't read comics. And I'm like, I read the classic comics, the comics that all this stuff is based upon.
Exactly. The stuff that kind of laid the foundation for what we have today. Now,
I'm going to tell you this. The one thing I didn't like about the new 52 is the Amazon's base. Well, actually, hang on. Okay, so one of the things that like the new 52 got some flack for is the Wonder Woman stuff, where the Zeus origin, I could go either way on. Depends on the story, because I've seen good stories with the Clay origin, good stories with the Zeus. So there's good justifications. But what people didn't like is the way the Amazons like basically like drugged men and basically forced themselves on them.
Yeah, they kidnapped like the sailors, and then they only they threw away the boys, and then the boys ended up working for Hephaestus, yes, in the chamber under there, and Diana tries to free them, and then they try to like bring them together, and then the Amazons end up slaughtering them.
I know,
like
by Donna Troy.
Yes, by
the way,
by the evil Donna Troy. Yep.
The funny part, that's actually historically accurate to the way the Amazons actually were.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were savage warriors. Like Hippolyta, like the story with her, like she has many enemies in Greek mythology.
Yeah. So when people, because here's the funny part, is that with the Wonder Woman fandom, they're very inconsistent with it's methodologically accurate, because I'm like, so is the way the Amazons were portrayed. You guys do a fit with that.
Yeah. And you see the way the characters are depicted in that. It's like the Greek characters, they're not copyrighted. So you have any right to do with them what you want. So it's open to anyone's interpretation. I could go write a book about the Greek mythology right now.
Yeah, I should. But
yeah, right. Yeah.
Because if there's any type of like world that's like relatively you could do anything you want with, it's Greek myth. But the thing about it, so with the Wonder Woman thing, again, it didn't really bother me because you know what, I like a lot of the stories. That's the thing about me. I could care less if if you make changes, as long as there's a good story, as opposed to like Injustice, where when you pull on the threads, it unravels like a very cheaply made like sweater or scarf.
Yeah.
It's really hilarious. But so the other for anything. So then I find out that Superman and Wonder Woman have their own comic. That's like their relationship and stuff. And I pick it up. And by the way, it was like one of the top selling books for DC, over 100,000 like pre-orders. That never happens with a Superman or Wonder Woman book. Batman, yes. Superman and Wonder Woman, no. So I'm like, that's the other reason why these people are so threatened. Because the one time they actually did it, it was monetarily successful.
But they're the lowest crybabies. That's what it is.
I love that. I love that. Thanks, Delight. But so, Polly, let me ask you this: what do you think of the Charles Sewell run of Superman Wonder Woman?
I brought out those two books specifically from the stack. And Tony S. Daniels' work on that comic, yes. He was going on like he was on his top tier performance for that comic. That's why I think too, like people saw those pictures, like probably some of like the like the little Easter or whatever, like the little bits of kind of stuff you got before the comic release, and you saw that art, and I would have got it just based on those. Some of those full spreads, like double page spreads he did of all the characters, those are just gorgeous.
Or my favorite moment. That book has my favorite Superman moment when Apollo blasts Superman with sunlight.
Yeah, and Clark says, "Sunlight, like, really?"
He's like, "You don't know that much about me, do you?" And I'm like, "Yes."
I know. And again, that was that. Like, how was that not an intriguing factor? Bringing in Wonder Woman and Superman's rogues together, like you had the really like vicious group of the Greek gods from the New 52 mixed in with Superman's rogues, and that you had like a really good potential for like tons of crossover stuff with those like villains teaming up.
Yeah, because that's the thing about using the gods. The gods are magic, and Superman is weak to vulnerable to magic. So there's any number of things that you could do with that.
Exactly.
Now, I have a question for Polly, right?
Yeah.
Have you met any of the writers or the artists for the New 52?
I haven't personally met any. The closest I've had was actually just some like Twitter interactions where they repost some stuff, where I repost their art or that. But I would love to, I'd love to meet any of them. I've got like the list of writers and artists that like top 5 throughout the New 52. How about yourself?
I happen to have gotten some stuff signed by Brian Azzarello.
Oh, nice. And out of this Wonder Woman.
So this is something that I picked up. I had a gift card for Medtown Comics. So I was having trouble trying to find an item to pick up. Then I see this. This is a CGC graded copy of Superman Wonder Woman #1 signed by Charles Sewell.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
As soon as I saw that, that
is gorgeous.
The Tony Daniel art is like, oh.
Yeah. And I think it's the volume 1 or 2 book. I have it right here beside me. He gave some sample art where he was supposed to be like a double page variant cover, and it's got both of their rogues kind of galleries together in one. And it's got everyone from
here.
Yep. There it is. That's probably one of my favorite pieces of art from the entire New 52.
Yeah, and actually, I can have that be the background of this. Well, yeah, because what that really showed is like it's not only them coming together, but it's like there you go, it's their worlds coming together. Because that's the thing. Imagine Superman like meeting Zeus and all that stuff. Well, my one problem with this series. And it's not Charles Soule's fault. I wish they didn't turn Hippolyta into like stone, because I would love for Hippolyta to meet Superman.
Yeah,
the epitome of
maybe,
man.
Yeah, the maybe mother-in-law too, right? Like they sort of meet and she's looking at him like, you know what I mean? Like this is the perfect specimen to be with my daughter, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when Jared first, when we started covering New 52, Superman and Wonder Woman on my channel, it was really cool because I never read Superman and Wonder Woman before. So for my first time experiencing it, it was like really, really cool. And I was at a time, Jared knows this, at a time I was a Wonder Bat fan, but then
they did it just to screw with me. That's why, because they know it makes me pissed off.
Yeah, that's funny. Me too. I grew up with the Wonder Bat too, with the Justice League 2000s cartoon.
Yeah, even though guess what, when you look at statements by the people behind that show, that was never a plan. So I'm like, yeah, there you go. But the other thing that to go into this, so going into like the other character that the New 52 like completely like dominated with, and this is gonna be my first book, Aquaman by Jeff Johns.
Oh yeah, the others. That was one of my favorite sort of like offshoot teams the New 52 produced. I thought that was a super cool team.
Yeah. So Teladia, remember the trench from Aquaman? That's where that comes from.
No wonder it was like, I'm not. Wait a minute.
The entire Aquaman movie is practically that comic right there.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting as well is anything that's New 52 related is also in the Snyderverse.
That's the funny thing about the Snyderverse. It's like when people were like, he's not accurate to the comics. Have you read the comics that were coming out at the time?
Yeah. And James Gunn, look at what James Gunn is doing. He's already talking about bringing in the Court of the Owls. He's bringing in the Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, and the Creature Commandos. Like, I don't think anyone who read anything but past the New 52 wouldn't even know who the Creature Commandos are.
Yeah, I didn't, but because I just didn't read that book. See, this was a good thing about the New 52. They gave such a variety of like other books that would not exist. Like there was one called Man of War. I know you probably hear.
Yeah, with Sarge. Yeah, they brought Sergeant Rock back.
Yeah, what I love about that is I've always wondered what does like life as like an everyday soldier look like in a world where you have superheroes?
Yeah.
That is crazy. But Paulie, let me ask you this. So what's your first like favorite New 52 book?
So what I'm looking at right here, it would be the whole story, the Scott Snyder, the 0 Year story.
Oh yeah.
That one. I'm sorry, but when I read that one, because like I'm an aspiring script writer, like I'm working on stuff like that. So when there was one of those ones where like, when you watch a movie or you finish a TV show or you finish a book and you're like, okay, this just inspired me to do. I was like, I had to go like grab my laptop and start like plotting my next, like, you know what I'm saying? Like my next scene, because I was so inspired by the writing of that book. When he had like Lucius Fox recording the message to his young son, Luke, when the sun is going up, because he doesn't know if they're going to make it out, when the Riddler has this like the city under siege, just like that in the art by Fico and Jonathan Glapian and Greg Capullo, like they just went off on that specific story. The mixture of the oranges and the reds with the purples and the blacks, it was perfect. That one's debatably like I would take that as like, you know what I mean? If you had to push me into saying which is your number one, like head, like bullet or gun to the head, yeah, the 0 Year story for sure, definitely.
How about you, Teladia?
Yeah, let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay, you know where I'm gonna go with this, Jared. It's Action Comics Volume 1 of Morrison's run of Superman.
Yeah,
I got that on my list right here.
Right there.
I've got the first 3 volumes because I was like, you know what? I'll pick up the first 3 volumes of Action Comics because Grant Morrison was running it, and simply because James Gunn was pointing it out too. I was like, you know what? If James Gunn is pointing it out, I might as well pick it up as well, right?
Yeah. That was one of the first images of the New 52 I saw, of that cover of Superman holding up the truck with his shirt on. I remember that was like one of the very first New 52 images I saw.
So
go ahead.
I'm
I'm still waiting on the DC Absolute Universe to see if that pops off.
Mhm.
Because funnily
it
enough,
might. I read DC All In, and it's actually pretty decent.
and it actually teased the new 52. It was like
New,
the new
yeah,
50
kind of, yeah.
yeah. It was like
So this one's very special because this was the first book I got all the trades for. Justice League,
Yep.
regular old Justice League. So
I was gonna say,
yeah, go ahead.
I was waiting for my opportunity to say Volume 2 when they see the first scene of Wonder Woman and Superman kissing, and then Batman had snuck a bat tracer.
I know, right?
And he's watching them do it. I literally said out loud, "Oh shit, okay, like you sneaky." You know what I'm saying? Like you sneaky. Oh my goodness,
Batman.
Yeah, and literally he knew it was coming before they did.
Yeah, exactly. And see, the thing I like about this is that first, I like how they aged everyone down a little bit so they're not as experienced. And it's the idea that you start to see like the bonds forming amongst the team. But I love that line in Volume 1 when Green Lantern's like, "So can you fly? No. Super speed? No." And then he goes, "Wait, you're not just some dude in a bat suit, are you?"
And then he grabs his ring. He literally shows him how easy it is. Yeah. He's like, "What's this do?" He's like, "No buttons or something." He's like, and then he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You won't do that again." He's like, "Unless I want to."
Yeah, unless I want to. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, Cameron, Batman did do that. But best of the new 52 is the Superman storyline Until Truth. Yeah, Truth is like Batman Until Batman, Quipping Batman, and the Justice League Dark comics. Those are good too. But so the other thing I really like about this is that particularly when you get into Dark Side War, when everyone became gods, and Teladia, we're gonna get to that storyline. You're gonna see this when you get the image of the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid squaring up. I'm like, I need this in a movie in some way, please.
Yeah. I remember when they were talking about the Earth 3, all the crime syndicate came over and they were talking about they were even running from something and they were hinting at that. You immediately knew what they were going for. Like the ones that were alive still, you knew they were going to be like brought back in to help to tell them about everything. Like I was getting ready for that setup. I was pretty excited for that one.
Well, the other thing, not only that, speaking of setup, it's like they set up Grail as early as issue 4 when Wonder Woman is like, Darkseid, why are you here? I'm here for her.
Yeah, that was the one. And that was from, I think, the Batman and Superman. Remember that he had a daughter named KO?
Mm-hmm.
She was that red-faced looking kind of demon girl. That one was the one thing that upset me, that she didn't go anywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she never went anywhere. She was in that series, and I remember she put Batman and Superman on their first adventure and then wiped their minds clean. So before the Justice League was even formed, they had met up in Gotham, went on this little adventure, and then this KO daughter of Darkseid wiped their memories clean. And then that's who Darkseid was saying sometimes he was searching from world to world for. So I thought she was going to be like some special beacon that held a part of his power or something because she was his daughter, but nothing ever came of that. So that was kind of upsetting. That was the one thing I could always remember.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting, but it did result in a pretty decent Wonder Woman villain, Grail. So I kind of appreciate that.
Yep.
But then okay, my number one book has to be Superman, Wonder Woman for all the reasons we talked about.
Of course,
it's again the Tony Daniel art. And it's like how hardcore the action goes. Like Zod shoots his heat vision at Wonder Woman. She blocks with her sword and then presses the burning blade onto Feor's face and burns her face. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then the next thing you know, they're cutting atoms with it, and you know what I mean? Like they're going out together like that with that big double page, nuclear bomb spread. Like what a way to open the comic.
And Polly, just to give you a fun fact as well, they used the General Zod and Fiora from the New 52 in the Man of Steel film. Costume design.
Yeah, the designs were heavily inspired, probably heavily inspired the Snyderverse. So I'm like,
absolutely, and because they are gorgeous again, again. Tony
Well,
Daniel.
speaking of costumes, how about that Superman costume that's like all nanotech that like grows all over him?
I kind of like that. I kind of like that because I thought it was kind of impractical at sometimes where he could get the suit and like where is he getting them made? You know what I mean? He goes into like some of those big fights and he always looks all busted up and the suit is gone. And then in like a scene later, it's just back. Like you just like, where do you get these things? Like at least give us like a little side page on like, you know, some special person who makes them for him or something.
Or like, where does the cape go when he's in his Clark Kent outfit?
Exactly. Like the cape is supposed to be the very special, like the drape of the House of L. So it's like that just can't disappear. Like, yeah, I liked how that like it kind of like recognized it. Like when he was wearing that, the plate recognized it, and that's what kind of like built the suit around the actual like cape of L. That was really cool.
Or as the Joker would say, where does he get these wonderful toys?
Yeah, exactly.
Or in volume 2 of Superman Wonder Woman, when he was turning into Doomsday, I liked how like the suit was still changing as he was being Doomsday. Like you could see some like spikes coming out, but then it would get covered up. So it was still like the suit was like adapting to him. By the way, yes, Superman Doom, that was a killer storyline.
Yes, it was.
Where, because I fully expected them to do a repeat of the death of Superman, but they were like, let's just do like another way to do it. There you go.
Yeah.
And
I like that too. And honestly, a lot of the Superman crossovers were great. The Hell story, like the lost Kryptonian who was made from like extract DNA by Jor-El. That was a great story. He was manipulating Supergirl the whole time. Like Supergirl had a great New 52 arc. Like she went.
She was a Red Lantern, bro.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Like, and then when Superman became a Yellow Lantern in the Sinestro series for a part-time, like I was loving all the Green Lantern Corps, like the other corps getting like recognition. That was awesome.
Speaking of Green Lantern, how about the introduction of Jessica Cruz?
Oh, yes.
The character everyone loves, but then forgets she came from the New 52.
New 52.
Yep. And I'm like, because here's the thing. When you start bringing in all these different variations of like the main character, they start to kind of seem like carbon copies of like other characters. But with Jessica Cruz, they made it where like she's unique in that she's constantly afraid. And you can't be afraid to be a Green Lantern. So they kind of played off that a little bit. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're actually making it unique.
Yeah. And the way the power rings, it was his ring that found her originally, right? After Forever Evil, after Sinestro hacked off his arm. Yes. And then it found Jessica Cruz. I remember that. And I was thinking, okay, because I didn't know when she was going to be introduced. I thought it was just Simon Baz in the New 52 and Jessica Cruz wasn't until Rebirth. So when I saw her pop up, I was like, okay, because she's in like every cartoon now, like every New 52, like afterward, the New 52 like cartoon, she was the Green Lantern.
The other thing that I really liked, there was this great scene with actually her, where it's like in Dark Side War, and yes, it's a little spoiler, but we'll just go off of it. So she gets like killed, and she sacrifices herself to like save Barry, but it turns out the ring was the spirit that was killed, so she is resurrected as a Green Lantern. And I'm like, okay, that is actually really cool.
Yeah, as in Barry, I liked Barry as the Dark Racer. Out of all the gods who like possessed him as the Dark Racer, I think worked really well.
And his design where he was like a skeleton and all that stuff.
That was what I mean, like the skeletal, like X-ray with the lightning bolt. That was a sweet design.
I also love Batman being the god of knowledge, where he shows up at Joe Chill and goes,
"Yes,
I know what you did, Joe. How could you know? Because I'm Bruce Wayne."
Yeah, when he's in the Mobius chair, that was actually really good because you think someone with Batman's knowledge attached to the Mobius chair who could ask those questions. It's like, oh, if there's a whole new plot line right there.
Yeah. So another one that I'm gonna echo you, Paulie. Batman, the Court of Owls, and City of Owls, and all that stuff. Because here's the big pull on this. There's this organization that has run Gotham from the shadows, and Batman didn't know they existed. Batman didn't know they existed, and he knows everything. Yeah. That's where you get me in that hook. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Let's do this. And then it just turned out to be one of the best Batman stories ever.
Yeah, the way Scott Snyder literally made like the city of Gotham its own like entity, like it was like a living, breathing, like almost like, you know, like it's something hiding in the shadows constantly. he just the way he broke down, like how he was talking about the ways that you could enter into the city from the Wayne Tower, how he the old Alan Wayne built the old gargoyles facing all the bridges that entered in and the bays, like just those little bits of like I wrote in a tweet one time, I said like you read a Scott Snyder book and it's like you're ready for an episode of Jeopardy with all the knowledge you just picked up, like
That's good. Bat
That's a good
Jeopardy.
one.
There you go.
right, like you could just like the knowledge he drops about like how the certain owls that were released into the cave to flush out the bats, and then like how bats would just go deeper into the cave, like that's a real life like ornithological fact, and he's just using it casually as a dope plot point. Like come on, like it's almost effortless.
Now, Tavia brings up a good point. Earth 2, DC's like first attempt at technically first attempt at an Ultimate Universe, because what's cool about that arc starts off with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman being murdered by Steppenwolf, and then they're like, okay, so now what? And I'm like, are we going to recover from the fact that you just slaughtered the Trinity? No. Okay. But it's one of those things where, and what blew my mind is that's happening at the same time as Volume 1 of Jeff Johns' Justice League series. So like they're simultaneously going on at the same time.
Yeah, that would definitely have. I remember I was one of those people. Like I was one of those people that bought the comic and I saw the cover with like the Trinity fighting on it. So I thought, okay. And then all of a sudden I'm done issue 1 and I'm like, well, there they go.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no, what just happened? Yeah, it's like Teladia. Steppenwolf stabs Wonder Woman, blows up. Kill Superman.
Yeah, he ends up coming back later and then ends up dying again. Like guy gets the double death. Yeah. I remember saying that too. Like, how could a bunch of parademons go and kamikaze take out Superman? Like, this guy could tank damage like that.
Yeah, but again, it was and then Batman sacrificed himself.
Yeah,
and then you find out that the Donna Troy of Earth 2 is Wonder Woman and Steppenwolf's daughter, and I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
That was kind of weird.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So what they established that there's this character named Fury, and she's basically a female Fury, obviously.
Yeah, and she's like a young Wonder Woman with like different armor.
Yeah. So what happens is she joins the good side eventually. And then you find out that, and she becomes the new Wonder Woman. But then it's like, I think it was Dick Grayson calls her Fury once, and she's like, Donna, my name is Donna. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Dick Grayson too, getting one of the most like strange arcs. Starts off as like a reporter, then just becomes Batman after losing the civilian daughter, his civilian daughter and civilian Barbara Gordon wife. Like,
yep.
I thought that was a bit shoehorned in. I really liked the Thomas Wayne on the super drugs. Like I liked that alternate version of Batman.
I like the idea that they were both alive, so technically there could have been 2 Batmen. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, that you kind of have me in here. And then Atchison brings up another great series. I'm trying to find your comment here, brother, but it was The Flash by Manipul, and first off, the fantastic art by Manipul, and the way the armor like grows around him in terms of like when he activates the rings, the individual armor plates like jump on him,
and the lines as well that goes
lines. There you go.
Yeah, you can tell that there's no traditional like inking or like that. He did all that work, and as a fellow Canadian, I want to shout out to Francis. He was a great artist for the Flash series. Really gave that series a unique little flair.
And he wrote it too, so it was like all on.
Shout out to that. He was on his stuff for the Flash. I like that. The second story that was when he started trying to like understand the new Speed Force powers, and then it took him to the Gorilla City. Like I like the Gorilla City storyline. I thought Gorilla Grodd is his I like the Reverse Flash and all those other guys, like all his the Rogue the Rogues and whatever. Like I love Captain Cold, but Gorilla Grodd, he's I think an underrated Flash. Like I know because he's a monkey, I guess people like discredit him, but I think he's a great Flash villain. I like the more intellectual characters like that.
He definitely is. So I got one more. I got another series that I discovered because I got like a prize pack or something like that, and Deathstroke, the God of War.
That was the second book I ever bought from the New 52 lineup.
Bro.
I bought it from one of my old comic shops.
God tier.
I
So
love that story.
they de-aged Deathstroke here. This is the one, well, and not this volume, but this series, where he travels to Themyscira, fights Wonder Woman, gets the God Killer sword, teams up with Superman and Wonder Woman, and kills a god.
Yeah, he kills Lapitus, the old Titan, one of the Titans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He shows up on the island, which is why in the Rebirth Wonder Woman series, when they said Wonder Woman has never been back to the island, I'm like, well, wait, Superman and Deathstroke have been back to the island, and that's still canon. So what are you talking about?
But how? Like, how did Deathstroke find out about Themyscira in the first place? Or how did he go to?
He got a guy. He was hired by, I think it was Apollo to like do.
And it was
and
Hephaestus was the one that gave him the sword.
Yeah, he was actually hired by the gods to kill the Titan. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So the way the like what's the word? The way the cliffhanger is for one of the series is that so he shows up, he breaks the seal in the gate, then Wonder Woman shows up and goes, "Do you have any idea what you've done?" And he's like, no. What did I just do? You just damned all of us." And then it's this big epic battle. Then we also have a team up between him and Red Hood. So Deathstroke is one of those characters that really, really, really benefited from it. And it was written and drawn by Tony Daniel.
Yeah, some more god tier work in there. Like there's a back spread of Deathstroke in there and just pencil. And again, like just gorgeous artwork.
And how bloody this series got. Like, Teladia, that is a panel in this comic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's to the point where I'm like, are you sure this isn't like an R-rated comic? Because that, which I like when they actually had the tone and like the bloody and gore and stuff fit the character. Because you can't make, like, for lack of a better term, a G-rated Deathstroke book.
Yep.
I mean, another book which is really good is Superman Unchained.
Oh yeah, Superman Unchained. There you go. I love that one. Although, see, here's my problem with that. Looking back on it, that's the book where, okay, so Superman and Wonder Woman are a thing in this universe. But here's the problem. They try to force Superman with Lois in that storyline and then like have it where like Wonder Woman's in the Batcave with Batman. So I'm like, that doesn't work. Although we did get that dope Unchained armor that he shows up when General Lane is like besieging the fortress, and he goes, "The bell's been rung," and then Superman emerges in the armor, and he goes, "Ding, ding, ding."
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that story got released for Superman's 75th anniversary, right? That was like,
I think so.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of maybe a reason they wanted to kind of shoehorn in Lois, just because like her in that story might have pissed off even more people, and they just didn't want to go through with it. But I thought if for the new 75 anniversary, like go all out, it could have been a great thing for him. It's like Wonder Woman to do like some kind of like epic thing to celebrate that. But that's just me.
So what other new 52 books did you enjoy?
Okay, so I got one here that we haven't discussed, and would be, it's another Scott Snyder, but it is Swamp Thing.
I've heard that's so good.
Oh.
So, and then you'll like it too, because after Volume 3, he did the Rot World, and then Charles Soule took over and he took over and he did just as fine a job as Snyder did. The Rot World story was great because they brought in other characters that had to do with the green and the red. So Beast Boy showed up, Poison Ivy, Black Orchid from the Justice League Dark team, the girl in the purple costume that was kind of had like weird like terraforming powers.
Mm-hmm.
They all came in and kind of made up a team. Then they teamed up with Frankenstein, Animal Man, and Swamp Thing. And they were fighting what's his name? Arcane, the father of Abigail Arcane.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the main antagonist, and he was running like the other thing called the Black.
Mm-hmm.
And that story, like that led into the Rot World through volumes 1 to 3. That was another one of my favorite stories, because you heard stories like, oh, like Snyder has, written a story just as good as Alan Moore. So we're like, like let's see about that. And he actually did a pretty phenomenal job writing. And like the Animal Man, that was probably like a top 3 surprise content for me. Like when I opened Animal Man, I did not expect that kind of content to be in there, like full on horror. The daughter's got like freaky animal powers where she's like the conduit for the red of the animals, and they have to go after Swamp Thing and team up, and they're being chased by the Hunters 3, like these freaky grotesque monsters. That one shocked me, like for the Animal Man, and I love that run by Jeff Lemire. Again, shout out another Canadian. I love Jeff Lemire. He did a great Green Arrow run too. His Arrow run with the other clans, the Fist Clan and the Spear Clan. That's another book that I would like to get into if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, that one too for the Green Arrow run. If you guys like, I remember saying like that story's volumes 1 to 3 was a mess after Ann Nocenti took over for volume 2, and he was in Canada fighting with those triplet girls. That was rough. For Green Arrow was not having a good time at the beginning of the New 52.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, and then as soon as Jeff Lemire took over and brought in all the other clans, like the Sword Clan with Katana and the Fist Clan. The art by Andrea Sorrentino, I wasn't crazy about, like for that story, like for the Green Arrow story, but the actual plot from Jeff Lemire, good stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's one of those things where Green Arrow is an interesting character in the New 52, and that he kind of didn't act like classic Green Arrow, so that kind of turned off some people, which I understand. Let me put it this way: it was better than what they did to Lobo.
Yeah, definitely. They lowered his charisma levels like Matt. Like that was kind of like his biggest thing. Like his charisma trumped that he was kind of like a light Batman version, like no powers, used gadgets and skill and billionaire. But the charisma and that really like kind of like drew people in for him, and he was very like altruistic, like a true altruistic hero. But this time he just comes off like almost a douche at first.
Well, he kind of was. There was an arc in Justice League, and Teladia and I covered this, where he's trying to get on the Justice League. He just shows up whenever they have a disaster, and he's like, "I'm here too."
Yeah. He shows that he shot one of the robots in the ass with an arrow. He's like, "Look, I did something. I helped out." And
I contributed.
I contributed to this fight. Yeah, he shows up like 3 random times, and all the times they just leave him in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So, what other books do you have that you really enjoyed?
So I was gonna say again, we get back into the Justice League. I've got the Forever Evil tie-in here.
There you go.
Yes, which we're covering currently.
Yeah, that one is that story. I thought from beginning to end with all the tie-ins too. Like you can take your pick, like the Arkham War. I know there was Argus. There was the Argus story, and then obviously the Justice League Blight. But I really liked just the original like 7-issue run of that with Catwoman and Batman kind of leading the thing. I thought that was great because I've always liked those like doppelganger stories, like when you've always wondered like, wow, these characters are just, like they always defeat their foes. Who could really beat them? Well, what about themselves? You know what I mean? Like that look in the mirror sort of thing. Like your greatest enemy is the one in the mirror.
Yeah.
So and I really I know like a lot of people say like David Finch's art is like rip off Jim Lee, but I don't agree with that. And I really
it's not. No.
Yeah. I've seen multiple comments say that. I'm thinking these people got to be in like a little pack together spreading this, because I love David Finch's work in the Forever Evil story.
Yeah, because it really he's another New 52 artist I met. He actually signed my Forever Evil trade, but my favorite part in Forever Evil and Teladia, we're going to get there. I don't know if this is in Justice or the main book, but it's when Johnny Quick corners Cold, and then Cold activates the voice command on the gun, freezes his leg, and he goes, "Do you know why I never did this to the Flash? Professional courtesy." Kicks the leg and shatters it.
Yeah, and he activates the gun by doing the old Batman rhyme. He's like, Batman smells or something, like Jingle Bells, Batman smells, and that's what activates the weapon.
I'm like, that is awesome.
But that's brutality right there.
Yeah, I know. There you go.
Yeah. The guy's leg, and then he just lightly kicks it, and the guy, and then when Lex Luthor crushes the Atomica girl, she's like begging, and he just
literally steps on her like she's an ant.
Literally just squash, like God, like all right.
I dig that. Another book that I actually read that's like very underrated is Voodoo.
Oh, I love Voodoo. I love that they brought in the Wildcats characters. Voodoo and Grifter, I thought that had a lot of good stuff going on for them.
Yeah, the thing I love about it is like Teladia, so Voodoo was a character created by Jim Lee when he left Marvel and made Wildcats. So when they brought her over to the New 52, when we see her, it's essentially like she's been body swapped with an alien, and the alien's trying to get information. So the alien's like cover job is as a stripper. So what's kind of funny is, so the real Voodoo shows up, and when the soldiers tell her what the alien does, she's like, "She what?" And I'm like, that was always like a really humorous thing. Thing they did. They also had like Captain Adam showed up in that. That was the thing about the New 52 that I really liked. A lot of characters that wouldn't get attention or hadn't gotten attention finally got attention. So I'm like, oh, okay, could be, because it's like I still find books that I haven't read before that I really like Man of War, OMAC. There's so many like fantastic. Red Lantern's got their own series.
And that one was really good. Bleeze in that one, she probably got one of like the best female arcs for like any female in a side like part, like not a main character female. She was great. How she kind of like usurped Atrocitus, and she was kind of like, you know what I mean, like the evil voice in his ear like the whole time. That was great. I like Bleeze.
Speaking of Charles Sewell,
yep, there he is again.
That was him.
Yeah, he took over after Peter Milligan.
Yeah, and Charles Sewell is one of those writers where I think he could do no wrong, because he got Wonder Woman, he got Superman, he got them together. He's one of those guys I wish they would bring him back to do Absolute stuff, because I think he would do a fantastic job, but I'm not that lucky. The other series that I really liked was Green Lantern, and particularly how like it carried over from like post-crisis, even though a lot of the stuff it carried over didn't make sense. Like, how does Blackest Night happen when you haven't introduced the characters that were really key to Blackest Night? But I digress. The cool part about that, besides the fact that it's Jeff Johns, is that scene when Hal is about to die. He has like 1% power, enough for one construct. All he does is he conjures an image of Carol and says, "That's the last thing I want to see before I die." And I'm like, it's tugging at my heartstrings.
Yep. Again, it's funny. Like these Green Lantern series were like, I liked Carol Ferris. I really liked her in that series. I think she's, again, another underutilized character in like entirety of DC.
Tevia says Amethyst got her own book, which I also thought was super underrated.
Yes, with the Eclipso arcs, because Eclipso was popping up everywhere. He popped up from the Catwoman series to the Team 7 series. He was all over the place. I liked Eclipso in that series too.
But you know what I was going to say, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Charles still gets around too much in the New 52 books.
He writes everything.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. When despite the fact that he was writing like 18 books, they were all good. It's not like one was bad. I'm looking at this and I'm like, because normally if you feel like you're writing too much stuff, you get overextended and you're like overwhelmed. I'm sure he was overwhelmed, but still, somehow everything he wrote turned to gold.
Yeah, and you saw that a few times with writers who were taking on more than like even 2 books, like 3, 4. That was too many. You notice where they were putting in more attention to the plots.
Yeah, and watching that, and I'm like, oh, geez, all this stuff is good. Dave says that the New 50 was the last time DC was truly great. It still should have been a separate Ultimate Universe, though. The shrinking, aging direct marker was never going to accept a reboot. That is true. My one thing, I think it would have been more accepted by fans if it were like an Elseworlds Ultimate Universe. Because here's the thing. The Ultimate Universe existed at this point, because that was started in the early 2000s. So it's not like this was unprecedented having a side universe. Because this way, if people want the convoluted as hell main universe, it's there. If you want the universe that makes more sense and the kids are younger and sells better, there you go. But that's the problem. They didn't want the new stuff to sell better than the old stuff. That's the problem with DC. Everyone's too proud. But what did you think, by the way, of those animated movies they made that were basically adapting a lot of these stories?
I actually have a couple of them on DVD because I actually really liked a couple of them. The Justice League Dark ones, the first one with Batman teaming up, and then it was Constantine, and they were going after.
I forget who
was
it Faust?
It was Faust at one point because I remember Zatanna almost kills him, but Constantine stops her. Yeah, I remember because I love a scene in that they're going up to see one of Constantine's friends, and a couple of like ghoul spirits go up to Batman, and one goes right up to Batman's face, and he can like sense it there, and he goes boo to the ghost, and the ghost actually like pisses off. Now I love that scene
because he's Batman.
Exactly, like literally, like Batman even scares like these freaky demon ghosts. Like I love that. Yeah, and then I'm looking at the ones I have right now. I started with the Justice League War, which was basically the Justice League origin from Volume 1 of New 52, just minus, cut a few, they added a few things, cut a few things for continue, you know what I'm saying, like for time-wise.
And they also swapped Aquaman for Shazam, and I get it. And I get it because they were doing Throne of Atlantis, but still, you should have had him in there.
I know. I was wondering why he didn't at least make a cameo, because then he got his own story, and then it wasn't even based where like he met the Justice League at any point. It was just a standalone. So I did think that was weird that they didn't like bring him into that.
Yeah, that was pretty weird. So give me a couple of more new 52 comics that you enjoyed.
All right, I brought out another one like this one too, only because the art was really what drew me in and then kept me around, was actually Batwoman.
Really? I've heard that one's good.
So the art by W. Hayden Blackman, it is like you need like a minute just to take in sometimes what's going on the entire page. He does some very intricate work, and the way he incorporates the panels into his spreads, it's really gorgeous.
And, oh yeah, here we go. I'm looking at it right now. Hang on, I'll share the screen real quick. But here we go. Yeah, right here.
Yes, and her story started off like a little slow because they were building up to give her like a whole new rogues gallery that was based on a group literally called Medusa, and
there you go.
Yeah, and it was based on a lot of like supernatural things. Like the first creature she fights is called La Llorona, and it's like an old Latin like ghost story about like a girl who comes up, like lost her kids, and she comes up from like water and steals kids. So it's almost like you're like a Latino boogeyman story, like a Latin American boogeyman story. And by volume 3 is when the story like got to its big climax. And who else was there? Wonder Woman, because she's fighting the Medusa, kind of like actual from the Greek mythology, and how that story actually climaxed with Wonder Woman in it. It was amazing. You had Killer Croc in the story. He gets morphed into like some kind of giant Hydra.
He turns into Godzilla is what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, he turns into literally like King Ghidorah, like the 3-headed like golden dragon.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, because he has like some kind of connection to the Medusa because of his like, the way he's like his genetics in that they brought in. And the first story though, how they introduce, so actually they bring Renee Montoya is supposedly gone, so they bring in an old character from Action Comics, Maggie Sawyer, a cop from Small.
Okay, there you go.
And now she's in Gotham, and that's who Kate starts dating. And there's I think it's issue 5 or 4, and they have it where they're having like the first time they're hooking up. At the same time, Betty Kane, the original Batgirl, makes like a cameo in this as like a side character as Kate Kane's partner, and she goes by Flamebird, and she's going into like a big fight with one of the Medusa goons, some like Frankenstein looking monster called the Hook. He's got like, again, like the Hook Man story, the Hook Man that wrote on the wall, like, you glad you didn't turn on the light. Oh, excuse me.
It's okay.
And she's fighting him at the same time Kate is hooking up with Maggie. I wish I had a camera for this scene. And it's showing that scene in black and white, like almost like a gray kind of like ambiance. And then you have Betty fighting the monster. And the way those scenes, like, you almost could like put some like kind of like, like some intense like piano music behind that. And that's like something that you could like make a little short, like, a little short movie out of. It was a great like like beginning to end story that included like just those two things from page to page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Please.
Do you know the story of how the new 52 came about?
I couldn't tell you exact like details, but all I know is that once they were like midway through Flashpoint, they kind of like decided that like maybe it was time to like go like full out, like not just reboot a few series, but go full out with the entire universe. And that's you know, please.
So what also happened was, so at the time DC sales were in the gutter.
Yeah.
And what happened was Warner Brothers came to DC and said, improve your sales or we're shutting you down. Now, by shutting you down, I don't mean they wouldn't allow comics to be published or like the characters to be. What I mean is that if DC were ever shut down, the characters would probably be licensed out to like Image or Dark Horse or whatever.
Mhm.
So they were like, what normally sells? Reboots, number ones. And then this was at the time when Flashpoint was happening. So like, hey Jeff, can you like redo this so it ends with the reboot? So that's when I say on my show that this initiative saved DC, I really mean it saved DC.
Absolutely, because I remember hearing the rumors that that very popular DC animated show Young Justice was canceled over toy sales because they weren't making enough money to back Warner's investment with, I think it was Mattel, and Mattel was the one that actually had the say in canceling a lot of these things because DC's like stock was so bad. So it's fascinating how I can remember those facets that you're now bringing up with that. That makes total sense.
Yeah, and it's the thing. See, the thing about what people always forget is like, and going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this episode, it's like the thing about DC and the reason why they keep doing reboots is because, hey, it sells. And here's what people have to understand. DC is a business. So they have to do what makes money. When reboots stop making money, they will stop doing reboots. And here's the thing. It brings people into the comics that normally wouldn't. Because here's the thing. Here's the problem. Okay, so Teladia, if you were to come up to me and tell me, Jared, I want to read, say you had never read a comic book. Hey, Jared, I want to read Batman. Okay, so what you got to do, you have to start at like 721. Don't read for 20 issues and then start at like 790. Ignore this run. What I mean is that there's so much crap you gotta weed through, which that to a degree that's part of the fun. But when you're a new person getting into comics for the first time, that is intimidating as hell.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
No. There's also another thing too. It'd be too confusing.
That's my point. Because if you have to read all the, but with the new 52, it was nope. Just start Justice League number 1, Superman number 1. Just read these books. You are good to go.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's exactly it. And that's what they're doing. It's like start from issue 0 of New 52 and basically work your way up for Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and so on and so forth. But I believe Batwoman was the first gay character to have their very own series in New 52.
They actually made Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, homosexual in the Earth 2. So I mean, he's technically in the volume 1 and he is a main character, but it's not like it's his title. But that would be another. Yeah, that would be. And then I remember in the Teen Titans, they gave a new character, Miguel Badigan. He was known as Bunker. Bunker. He would make those psionic purple bricks, and he was also homosexual.
That was a weird series,
and that was especially because Scott Lobdell literally wrote it out. Like Bunker tells Wonder Girl straight up, like, "I'm gay." Like that was so.
I'm like, wait, what?
Like literally, you couldn't have wrote him where he's just a fascinating character where the reader's like, okay, I think this character is gay. You know what I mean? He had to like full out, like that was like Scott Lobdell, man. Weird dude.
That's the series where everyone got the Tron suits, right?
Yes, in the Colleen story. In the Colleen story, when they crossed over with the Legion Lost characters, some of the Legion of Superheroes characters that were stuck in 2011.
Yeah, that was that.
The only reason I have those books is because I needed to finish the Colleen story.
There you go.
Yeah.
The reason why I have them is because I got them before I knew they were bad. So I was like, okay, these look fun.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the other problem. Here's the problem with the new 52. They tried to tell us that everything that happened to Batman happened in 5 years. So he's had like 5 Robins.
Yeah,
they had to explain that.
Yeah, and again, it went through Dick was Robin and then Nightwing within like 6 months. They were trying to say because they had to bring Jason Todd in. He was only Robin for a year, would have made sense, and then Tim kind of forces his way in by, remember in his 0 issue, he extorted the Penguin, and then his parents have to go into the witness protection program. Yeah. But they just were like, yeah, no, we'll leave you with this rich billionaire in the city where the guy you just robbed still lives. But we'll go to the
exactly.
That was a bad 0 issue. Like there were some rough 0 issues. Like some of them got ugly, but that one I remember. That one was I was like, really? Like, and then again, Batman just accepts him after he's already lost Jason less than a year ago. Like the guy hasn't even had time to grieve. Like
I know. See, if they had told me everything that happened to Batman and the characters happened in 10 years, then I can buy that.
Yeah,
then
even 8, I would have worked with. I would have worked with.
Because that gives you more time for like most of that stuff to happen.
Yeah,
Granted, you still run into the whole Green Lantern, Blackest Night thing, but I could still play with the other stuff. It's really weird, but it was also pretty good. The last thing I'll say about the new 52 is that it really helped Jason Todd because it gave him an actual origin as opposed to Superboy Prime punching reality.
Yeah, that was terrible. And Jason Todd, shout out to him, my favorite former Robin, with his
me too.
Yep, his arc with the All Cast and the Untitled, and then how he was actually shown what he did with the League of Assassins. Thank you, New 52. Thank you for that. That is something I appreciated.
Yeah, and actually, because that's the other thing that the initiative did is it cleaned up a lot of the really BS parts of DC lore. And I'm like, okay, this all makes sense. And we're at the Amazons. Yeah, everything that happened to the Amazons makes sense. And they kind of, I get the feeling they did the whole Zeus origin because when you look at a lot of mythological heroes, about 99% of them are Zeus's kids. Yeah. So they're like, just do this.
Yeah. And it was easy. It was an easy way to kind of branch everything from a source that they didn't even have to build on yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so I think it's a good. Unless you have another book you want to talk about, we can go ahead and wrap up.
Sure. I have actually one right here, and this is the one. So, if anyone with an eagle eye who was watching the New 52 over the first issues, you would see a secret character that was hiding in every first issue, and that was Pandora.
Yes, I was about to say Pandora.
You know it. And I remember when I started, I remember I noticed her in, I think it was Firestorm. She was very prevalent. I was like, oh, ooh, who's that? And then I started thinking is this something in Firestorm? And then I searched it up, and I kind of ruined that for myself. I found out the Easter egg that she's in every first issue. So I'm going back through my collection of books I've already read looking for her. And then when I found out that she was going to teamed up with the Phantom Stranger, who ended up being Judas Iscariot.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the Question, who I think Jeff Johns said in an interview who he wanted him to be, and I can't tell you who it was off the top of my head, but that was the other person who made up the Trinity of Sin in the New 52. And I liked Pandora. I've always liked her story in Greek mythology, and then her kind of how she would fight the 7 deadly sins, pride, gluttony, sloth. That was pretty cool. I thought that was probably one of the most unique parts of it. And then she ends up fighting Vandal Savage because they're both immortals. Vandal Savage, again, underused character, and I love that guy. He's one of probably the most, if you're talking characters that you can actually watch and look past some of the evil things he's done, it's Vandal Savage. I'm sorry, he's got such a cool lore to him. It's endless. It's endless content. The guy's been around since the Chromatian, I think they said he is. So that's endless. You know what I mean? They say at one point he was, Genghis Khan. He was you got stuff there that you could really play with.
Yeah, exactly.
So Polly, I got a question for you.
Yes.
If you had to give Avid a new reader that's coming in, that's likes, let's say they like the old stuff, what would you recommend besides the obvious choices? What would you recommend for them?
So for the new, like if they wanted like some sleeper picks sort of things, like what you're asking, like some like kind of like hidden gems.
Hidden gems, something that will get them excited about the comic.
Let me pick my brain a bit. Oh, okay. Okay, these ones are impossible to find, but I always thought these were a great time. And if you just wanted to read some comic books and kind of like start a little DC collection, All-Star Western. Hard to find.
Yeah.
Yes, hard to find, but excellent stuff. Like Jimmy Palmiotti, his run with Harley Quinn, I thought his writing is like, I always said it's like his writing seems to cater to like horny 16-year-old boys, but like,
That's so good.
Yeah, but his actual run on All-Star Western, he brought in a character that I had personally, like full like disclosure, never heard of, Amadeus Arkham, who I found out was introduced like 10 years prior in a story by Grant Morrison called Arkham Asylum, where it was like based in that. Yes, I'm sure. Yeah. So I kind of liked, like, again, if I was to tell anyone, obviously hard to find, but I'm sure like the online ones, but All-Star Western would definitely be like a hidden gem in there that I would definitely recommend. Justice League Dark, I know we've talked about it, but again, the New 52 has introduced that team. And I always thought like the only thing that they missed on that series would have been just bringing in all the magical characters. You know what I'm saying? Like almost having like two Justice League Darks, like, and they were competing to see who was the, like, they're not like, neither one is like full on antagonist, but they kind of like duke it out to see who's the more magical team. Like I thought that would have been a cool plot line to just bring them all, you know, like Blue Devil.
Well, they kind of did do that with the regular JL and then the JLA.
Yes, they
another great series.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna say too. The JLA series, it also spawned two spin-off ones. One was Katana, which by Ann Nocenti. I'm sorry, I like Katana as a character. The Soul Taker thing is a cool story. I love that she's, you know, an Asian character, not an Asian American, just full on Asian character. Very good stuff. But the other one that spun out from JLA, Vibe, with Cisco Ramon, that's a sleeper one for me. Great 10 issues. And again, a character that you've never heard of, but man, he is cool. So definitely Vibe. And then, like, again, the whoever brought up the Amethyst comment, I would definitely say that one was good because it also had two good backstories. One was Beowulf, and I also thought that was super cool. Like the one that they brought in with him. And then, like, I want to say Team 7 too. I know it was a second. I know it was a second wave title, and I thought that one was like again, super cool potential. It had a great setup where it was like that was like the guts of how like the New 52 was being born, and those characters were like navigating what was coming out of it. You had a young Black Canary, a young Amanda Waller, Deathstroke like Slade Wilson pre-Deathstroke. And then you had Kurt Lance in there, like a very like eclectic team of like the spy types
that you wouldn't expect would actually team up. So I'm like, okay, that's actually really cool.
Yep. And then like even the ones that didn't get, like, again, I didn't like the ones that got canceled after 8 issues. Hawk and Dove, okay. OMAC was okay. I liked how they brought OMAC into at least the Justice League International, and he made an appearance in the Forever Evil story. And I remember he was in Bell Rev. I remember he has a big battle in Bell Rev with Super Power Girl and Steel. And I remember he's like kicking the crap out of both of them in that story. So I thought that was pretty cool. I liked OMAC. He's a Jack Kirby character too. If like fun fact, that story, his original creator was Jack Kirby.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good place to leave it. So Polly, where can we find you, and what have you got coming out on your channel?
Okay, so this Friday is actually my release date, so I'm finishing up my titles that I did that were included in the Night of the Owls crossover. So this week it'll be Birds of Prey, and then next week it'll be Detective Comics Volume 2, both Volume 2s. And then I think I'm going to switch over into some other ones, you know, talking about Swamp Thing and Earth 2 today has got me in the mood. I think I might, you know, swing over to another collection of characters. Oh, another series that that I think I would mention, like for sleeper picks, Green Lantern New Guardians. I thought I'd end on that one.
Hell yeah!
Like, I actually really like that they brought in all the Corpse members. I like that Bleeze was in it, and I did like that Kyle Rayner got some nice recognition in that series. Like, I liked how all 4 of the main Green Lanterns, like the New 52 spoiled us with that. Gardner, Stewart, Rainer, and Hal. They all really did get their own nice pieces of stuff that you could like read and enjoy.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
How about
But
you,
yeah,
Teladia?
Yeah. So,
Okay,
anyways, sorry guys. So yeah, you can find me on my X is just the New 52, the DC New 52. Same with Facebook, and then yeah, follow me on YouTube, which is the DC New 52 review. Those
All
two
the links are down there.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, so stay tuned for tomorrow, Birds of Prey Volume 2, and then the following Friday, Detective Comics Volume 2.
Hell yeah. How about you, Teladia?
You guys can check me out on Twitter at Teladia Plays _. On YouTube, you can check me out at Teladia Plays. What I got coming up is this Sunday will be the 2 episodes of Batman Cape Crusader live reactions. We'll be doing back-to-back episodes. And then on Wednesday, we'll be doing Snyder Fans Read Comics. And this time, we're going to be doing Absolute Batman, as myself and Jared will be covering that. It's first release. So I'm sure Jared will be fine with that, covering that for that week. And then the week after, we'll be going back to doing New 52 stuff for the week after, where we're going to be covering Forever Evil. We'll continue on.
Hell yeah.
We're covering on our series there. So I can't wait for that. And we'll be having a discussion about DC All In as well, because I think, you know what, it has a sprinkle of New 52 in there. I have to talk about that.
You look at that Wonder Woman design. I'm like, yeah, I think I see where you guys are taking your inspiration from.
Yeah, so we're going to have a topic of discussion for that on the stream anyway. So stay tuned for that.
So as for me on Saturday, well, obviously on movie night I have CLD. Tomorrow night we're going to cover all the new stuff. Movie night, we're covering Twilight, and that's because we're covering horrible movies. And that also that night, Britt and I
That's a Halloween scream fest right there.
Hell yeah, dude. But so Britt and I are talking about Superman and Wonder Woman shared like background and how like they click together. And we'll see what I feel like covering next week. But anyway, Paul, I want to ask you, what inspired you to start your channel?
So actually, as soon as I finished reading, like after 5-6 years of collecting and reading the New 52, I finished with the Dark Side War, and I felt like a pilgrim who had just finished his pilgrimage. Like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to do now? And I think, and like, do I go into the New 50 or do I go into Rebirth? Do I go, do I backtrack? And I thought, you know what? How can I keep these comics like kind of like in my life sort of thing, like, without just, reading them? And I thought, you know what, a YouTube channel, I love talking about it. I'd love to get into the community of DC. And I know again, from seeing all the people hate on the New 52, I wanted to bring some positive light and recognition to it. Simple as that.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's partly what this channel exists for. And we'd love to have you on again, like anytime, dude.
Please, any New 52 content, you guys send me a shout and I will be here.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. Zois and Max are bad for life. I will see you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.